Peites, and the question is waiting after eating meat. Hamtana lacher Hilchos Basar. That's the sugya over here. This is the wonderful sugya. Shlach l'gvina achar basar, says the mechaber. This is Gemara Chulin Daf Kov Hey Gufa Amar Rav Chisda. Hopefully Yissi will watch this, so we'll tell him the page number in page 372 in Daram Malaktim. Amar Rav Chisda Achal Basar, although it depends which version you have. Achal Basar Asar Lechol Gvina. Gvina Mutter Lechol Basar. Amar Mar Ukva Ana Lahamilsa Chala Bar Chamra Legabi Abba. Why? Dilu Abba Kiavi Achal Bisra Ina Lovi Achal Gvina Lamachar Hashta. He would wait a full 24 hours. I just don't eat in this meal. I'll eat it. Which from there, many places can see that there is an Indian already to be machmir. See already from the Gemara that even things which are far-fetched chumras, we see that there's an Indian. Now, there's obviously also an Indian not to be crazy because Mar Ukva, l'chayr was quite a guy. And he was saying about himself that he's vinegar klapi his father. So if there is an Indian, any chumrah in the world to take on, so then l'chayr Mar Ukva should have waited like his father. Elamai, there is, I'm not saying Torah, this is Pashut Gemara. Elamai, there are things like, okay, extreme, and it filters down. Stam, there's a lot of side sugyas that the Ilam discusses in the beginning, which we don't have time to go into, is eating through a feeding tube and eating through IV, if these things make you fleishiks, eating a nevela, which some of the Ilam discussed, v'chulu, eating by mistake, which some of the Ilam discussed. I'm not going to go into that right now. Maybe one day we'll go into that. What I'll say is the pashtos, which is Rav Chaim Kanievsky. Obviously, I just jumped from a Gemara to Rav Chaim, but we'll get to everything in between the Mirz Hashem. Is what if someone by mistake? In a moment we'll discuss the reasons you have to wait v'chulu v'chulu. But what if someone by mistake ate milk after meat? What's the matziv? So the pashtus is what Rav Chaim says. You got to take it out of your mouth, but you don't have to throw up. That's the pashtus, which I think everyone here knew. You don't have to throw up, but you can stop eating it. Everyone knows there are some who are willing to be mekel. There is a kafa chayim, a tas k'toshim, buchacha, miktishmat, which maybe we'll come back to. There are okay. So, why did I even try? No, because we'll get back to it.
When he said mekel,
the mekel, I got it. Yeah. We'll get back to it. It's just not fair. I didn't say we're mekel. He said there are those who are mekel and ganzen. Well, we'll come back. We have to first understand what we're being chayshish for before we understand if you ate a mistake. So, good. So, the first question is why are we waiting between meat and milk? What's the reason? So we all know that there's a Rambam and there's Rashi. Rambam says basar bein shinayim, and Rashi says that it's moitzai shuman, that it brings up the taste. And the nafkaminos we saw together, whether just chewing, whether te'ima, and obviously you have to be careful what in the world does te'ima mean. Te'ima doesn't mean that you eat everything and say, oh, I was just tasting it. Te'ima l'chayr in this regard means like a chicken soup on Yom Kippur. That's what te'ima means. Well, Yom Kippur maybe not, on Tisha B'Av. What do you want to give, you're making chicken soup for Matzah Tisha B'Av. So te'ima's mutter. Te'ima, I think Tisha B'Av is the same thing as all fast days. I don't look this up. A regular fast day for sure. Yeah, Miguel's Esther. Miguel's Esther. Tainis Esther. You can be toyim the food. What does it mean, be toyim the food on a fast day? So everyone here knows already, it doesn't mean to just pound the food on a fast day. I'm tasting it, if it has enough. No. It means you put a dot on your tongue to see if it has enough, whatever. That's what te'ima means. So the real question is, this is how you have to start, is, so we have two reasons why after meat you can't have milk. Question is, how long? How long? Very, very simple. How long? So the Rishonim begin based on the Gemara, and the Gemara says, Mesuda l'suda. Says the Gemara. The question is, what does it mean, Mesuda l'suda? Comes along, interesting, yeah, I think it's Rav Rishonim. I think it's fair to say Rav Rishonim. I think so. When you have taste, yeah, I don't know if it's Rav. No, meaning 6 hours versus silik miyad That's interesting. Meaning, let's just go in order. Rav Rishayim, the Rambam, the Rif, the Rosh, they all say that you have to wait 6 hours. That's what it means, Suda L'Suda. Okay, then you have right after the meal. That's, I think, the opposite extreme. We're going to take the two extremes because that's really on the page, which is Taisus. And Taisus comes along. Taisus says that you have to go from one meal to the next. You finished the meal, you benched. You didn't bench B'kavana, we all saw that Shayla. And then you're allowed to eat the next, then you're allowed to have milk. Those are the two extremes, and that's the Rav in the world of the Rishonim. We'll get to Shulchan Aruch and everything in the middle. There is a middle Shita. There is a middle Shita in the Rishonim found. That's found. Rav Chaim doesn't believe it should be found. To put it bluntly, he says it's a mistake. But Rabbeinu Yerucham famously, Rabbeinu Yerucham was the one that they had a chayrim on reprinting. No, that's it is right. So it's interesting that Rav Chaim wasn't nervous to call it a tayis in the fuss. No.
Because that's the whole thing. You couldn't get people to reprint it because no one reprinted. So
Okay, you would think that then it has the best. Okay, interesting. I just thought that on the spot. Did anyone admire such a thing? Interesting. Okay, Rabbeinu Yerucham comes along, and he says, "How long do you have to wait?" He says, "Shenamar abasar odenu bein shineim v'hu gimel sha'is ke Rashi." That's what he says. So if you wait 3 hours like Rashi, v'tam zeh toiv l'nakar shinav should clean out your teeth. Already in the world of the Rishonim, on this Rabbeinu Yerucham, there are those that come along and they say that what I just said was Chinese. No one should understand what I just said. 3 hours like Rashi? Where does Rashi say 3 hours? Where does Rashi say 3 hours? And that's what they all ask, and they want to say, that's why he said Rav Chaim. Again, one of the Rav Chaim Svarim. They say, perhaps it is a tayis in the fuss. Maybe it's a mistake in printing, but there is such a Rabbeinu Yerucham, which we're going to have to contend with. And then you have the Maril that says 1 hour. That's our Rishonim. So again, you have on the page, we'll call it, on the page of the Gemara, it would seem Suda L'Suda like Taisvis, which is finish the meal and go weiter. Once you flip to the Rishonim, which means you flip to the back of your Gemara, you get to the Rosh, you get to the Rambam, then you start seeing everyone saying 6 hours. And then you have this interesting Rabbeinu Yerucham that says maybe 3, and you have a Mar.
There's another Rabbeinu Yerucham that says 6 also, so it's not even the steering wheel.
Yeah, that's a day. Okay, I was going into the bigger kasha, but yeah, that's also true. It's also meaning, yeah, that's also true. Good, but then you have the 1 hour, the Maril. So now it's even certain sugyas are fascinating. So then you open a Shulchan Aruch, and like, what would you expect to find? I mean, I'll tell you what I would have expected to find. You expect that the Shulchan Aruch, let's just do it together. Comes on the Shulchan Aruch, and the Mechaber, Hilchos Basar, what do you have to do? You have to wait 6 hours. L'chayra, that's what everyone would have thought, based on the world of the Rishonim that we just learned. Imish Basar, afilu im shah, kasher mish bas bein sheneim, sarch lasir v'alayis l'tinuk, sarch lamdin. So the Mechaber, l'chayra, is the most pashut shita in this whole sugya, and nothing starts. 6 hours, dina. According to, and I think Sfardim, this is, they're machmir, and I think they go, no, yeah, they are. Just Rav Avadia, no, I don't think so. Comes along the Mechaber, and he's machmir. You have to wait 6 hours. So far, so good. Now the Ramah is where things get completely fascinating. Says the Ramah that the Yesh Aimrim starts right away with it. First he quotes about if you found something between your teeth. The Yesh Aimrim, you don't have to wait 6 hours. Miyad imsili kubir chamazayin mutter adekinach adacha, which is shitas taisis. V'haminag hapashit b'nina zeilu, and what's the minag hapashit? Is sha'achas, the maril, which, if you know anything about marils, that part that makes a lot of sense. Because in general, the maril is the minhag Ashkenaz. Often when you find the Ramah that's bringing down a shita that's not whatever, it's the maril, which is usually where the minhagei Ashkenaz come from. But then the Mechaber continues, the Ramah says, v'yesh midaktikin, now he goes with all the other Rishonim to wait 6 hours, v'chein nachein lasis. and that is the right thing to do. So, according to the Ramah, it would be difficult to know exactly what to do in the world of the Ramah itself, but it sounds like what? It's the right thing to do 6 hours. And if not, like let's say someone's like, the right thing to do, I'll take on Chalav Yisrael. Sounds like the Ramah would say, okay, there's a reputable minhag to wait an hour. It sounds that way. Yet comes along the Paiskim on the page, and they say that's not true. They all say that the minhag over here wasn't a minhag that they were so happy with, and to the point that the Shach, which really is a Lavush, comes along and says, excuse me, it's not a Lavush. The Shach comes along, and says, Kol mi sheish bo reach Torah, which is just fascinating. Again, I find a lot of this fascinating, the Lashonis over here. If you're Reach HaTorah, then all of a sudden you're being machmer over here, says the Shach. And now, when you close the Shulchan Aruch, one would ask, so what do we do? So it sounds almost like the Shach is making an emotional, impassionate plea to wait 6 hours. And I don't know. So you would open up, the latter Svarim, the Hilchos Basar, the Kitzer, the Chafetz Chaim, and all his Svarim. And would one have been surprised if they found to wait 1 hour? I wouldn't have been surprised. I would have thought it'd be very normal. If, let's say, the Chafetz Chaim and Sefer Nidchei Yisrael talking to all the Jews going to America, I would have thought it very normal if he would have said to wait an hour and there's a chumrah or something. No, he comes along and he says, Asr lech lachar machal chalav, unless 6 hours passed. Our Chashochet says Minhag HaPashat B'chol Tfusas Yisrael, and the Hilchos Basar says the Minhag HaPashat. So for whatever its reason, and the historians probably have a field day. They certainly do dealing with the Yekis. So we'll get there in a moment. But even without dealing with the Yekis, I already find it fascinating, this whole story. The Hilchos Basar goes so far, and he says that if you're over on a minhag, over al titesh Torah simecha, it's a minhag to wait 6 hours. So what happens when one gets married, and the woman, for whatever reason, didn't wait 6 hours, comes along the Paiskim, and they say she did not, and her husband waited 6 hours. What does she do? What? What are you saying? Oh, what are you saying? This is most minhagim. That what happens? No. We're going to see in a moment. We'll see in a moment. We'll see in a moment. We'll see in a moment.
Why is that emotional? No, I'm saying, of course,
3 hours.
No, he's anticipating the future. He's being a chacham, arayas, and noilad. But let's just quote. No, there isn't. It's a minhag. That's all we're bringing out. It's a regular minhag. It's a Hilchos Basar. Al titesh Torah simecha. Husband, wife follows her husband's minhagim, and therefore. I'll just read you the way the art school book writes it. I think he writes it very simply, which is really what most of the Gedalim say. He says it both ways. He says it both ways. If her husband waits 6 hours, she can wait 6 hours. If her husband waits 3 hours, he can wait 3 hours. Which that's how the art school book goes all the way. And they quote Ramosha as saying the same thing. They quote him. It's not a proper tshuva, and that's the story. Now. She follows her husband, both ways. It is a little bit of a chiddush, but let's dayat tzara b'shaitai. Let's get to the bigger problems over here. So, firstly, we have an Aruch HaShulchan. First of all, does the 1 hour ever rear its head? This maril, this minhag of the Ramah, does it ever come up? So on the page, we already saw the Chassam Sofer. The Chassam Sofer says, one who is a chayla and wants to drink mei chalav, not proper milk, lirufu asay, and the Chassam Sofer is meikol after 1 hour. Was the Chassam Sofer midukdak in mei chalav versus chalav itself? That is a shayla. Some want to say yes. Some want to say yes. Some want to say no. And we'll come back to this in a few moments. Our Chashulchan, though, points out that if you're going to wait 1 hour, you have to do kinuach and adach. You have to wash your mouth out, and you have to wash your hands out, etc. So now, the $1 million question that we all want to know about is what's going on with the Yekis. All of a sudden, everyone cares about the Yekis, Baruch Hashem, Marbe Achva V'Reis, and where do they get 3 hours? Fascinating. So, where does it come from? So, the the Badi Shulchan doesn't mince words over here. The Badi Shulchan in Tziyonim 53 writes, "V'loinis parishli amakara tam leminigzeh." Finished. I don't know what's going on over here. And he wipes his hands clean. Shavreisi v'chaya adam. And interesting, he found the chaya adam that writes, Yish mekilim lahantir eze sha'is. Eze sha'is. I think we saw together a prichadash. That's a dalid sha'is. Kimoi dalid sha'is. Okay. They asked Rav okay, let's take it slowly. So where does it come from? No, Tachlis, where does it come from? Where does 3 hours come from? Either Rabbeinu Rocham, like we just said, or it's some level of pshara, whatever that means. Or it comes from, which many people here have suggested, the latter Achrayim want to say, that it's a type of pshara, that it's the math of Suda l'Suda in the winter. In the winter that you have a short day. So what is the difference in Suda l'Suda? Is 3 hours. So Rav Shimon Schwab, obviously, is going to be the Mar Makom for the Yakis over here. And Rav Shimon Schwab, there's multiple letters. Again, I'm privy to letters that he quotes over here. I wonder if there are more. I really don't know. And Rav Shimon Schwab says that it's interesting. He has the letter in Hebrew and in English. Moiridik. So Rav Shimon Schwab comes along and he says, just like we said, that where does it come from? He says, Shalafia minig shal Ashkenazim shoichlan Suda b'chol gimel shais. Therefore, bein Suda l'Suda. That's where it comes from. So now, but what's I think unknown is what did Rav Shimon Schwab himself do? Says Rav Shimon Schwab Alein, he himself says, not just he himself, in Germany, the Rabbanim, and Talmidei Chachamim. This is like wild. I didn't know this. I just found this out.
My father, when he got married, he asked him, he grew up eating 3. What should I do?
No.
You want to smell a Torah?
Shh. Rav Schwab said that straight to him. So Rav Schwab, beautiful. Rav Schwab comes along, and Rav Schwab says, the Rabbanim and Talmidei Chachamim all wait 6 hours. Why? Because the Shach says, Reach HaTorah. But they were makel, interesting. Achitiru l'nishehem. Ula b'nei beisam, to wait 3 hours. Even the Rabbanim, this actually explains something that I've been wondering for many, many years, but we'll get there in a moment. Even the Rabbanim only were makabelis on themselves. For their families, for everyone else, they let them wait 3 hours. And he writes, what do you say? Harabanim be'Ashkenaz hayu umi sheish l'reach Torah. The Rabbanim Alein, they were machmirin lishois vav shois, but they were heitiru linisheim. They were lenient and permitted their wives and, well, hopefully singular, and other members of the household to wait 3 hours. To wait 3 hours. And now really the question becomes, what does one do if he is of Yekish descent and he's been waiting 3 hours, and then he sees a Shach says Reach Torah, then he hears Rav Shimon Schwab says Reach Torah. So what's interesting is that to do tshuva. So Rebelsky said, don't change. You have a minog, stick with your minog. They quote Rav Shach, interesting. In the Sefer Sharshay Minig Ashkenaz, interesting. The Rav Shach says that Ein L'cha Mishana Aminog Avoisecha. I would like to look up the. Yeah. I was just going to say, I want to look up this Rav Shach.
Why not? Only Yankees eat every 3 hours? Why does this stuff get?
Why they come? Where do they come?
There's reason that every 2 to 3 hours, like only them. In Germany, that's what they're.
In Germany, the Yankees took on such a Kabbalah.
Why did they take on the winter?
No, because the smallest amount. The small meaning, if you're allowed to wait, that means the smallest amount. What's interesting, again, what's very interesting is that it sounds like, and this is for a historian, that even when the Yekish Minhag began, the Rabbanim didn't do it. Is that true? The historians say they did and they changed.
Historians say that most Rabbanim that were in Germany came from other places in Europe. They brought them in as Rabbanim.
And then?
So they had them in 6 hours coming. That's what the historians say.
And therefore what?
That's why the Rabbanim waited 6 hours, because they were coming from
But then they allowed the people.
Their kids to switch over to the minhag that was in the school.
Their bottom weren't yakis.
Yeah, but they it's true, but they did say that when the kinder you daven that you want to be iskin b'Torah b'mitzvahs, when the kid becomes a reach Torah, he should wait 6 hours.
That they didn't do.
They did because they were machmir. That's what Shab writes. Shab says,
but not their families and kids.
right.
So Rabbanim themselves.
So when you become a rabbanim or talmidei chachamim, then you wait 6 hours.
Well, that was the Matzah minhag.
Oh, you want to say it's interesting historical fact? I hear.
So why didn't their kids wait 6 hours?
It's still like that.
So why didn't their kids wait
The
6
rabbin
hours?
washing us right now is not Yakish, she's Swiss.
So why didn't his kid wait?
Now, your answer. So you should know what was reported here as a story from Rav Schwab. Rav Forshemer says the same thing.
Yeah, it's just Miko
No, but it's not true because they told other people to wait 6 hours
He says they were Miko
on their own kids, on little kids. But then when people asked, like the Shver asked, guess he knew he was going to come a Rav.
And I think
The it sounds like Rav Forshemer writes Shamati that Rav Schwab would tell Bnei Torah to wait 6 hours, and Rav Forshemer quotes his father. Avamayri, Amr Lish Rav Schwab, Amr Loi. By the way, Rav Forshemer is Yaki. Forshemer is Yaki. So he writes, Ani mimishpachti yotzi Ashkenaz, shenagu lachikoyit, shalosh shayis, ben basal chalav, shamati anosh mefakvinam, b'nei gzev ha'imrim, shoyel b'nei Torah lachshay shayis, madas Rav Shlita b'zeh. Excuse me, they asked Rav Forshemer that. Forshemer writes, I heard Rav Schwab told B'nai Torah to wait 6 hours. My father said that Rav Schwab said to him to wait 6 hours. Kamish leida, Rav Schwab zatzal, hera makam, the gimel shayis, b'Rabbeinu Yerucham. Omnam yishtira b'machakasa b'ikar asay for the machakasa b'kitzur halachas. Chen royu l'chol lachlik vav shayis. 5.5, like Rav Aaron Cutler, avol kedai to make it tonight, etc. So it's interesting that that's on the 5.5. On the 5.5, that would happen. So now we're taking Rav Yashiv comes along, and Rav Yashiv says that ein lahakal bantanetz gimel shayis. And he says, even Bnei Ashkenaz, he felt that they should all change their minhag. In Eretz Yisrael, for sure, they all say that they might even say it's a minhag Eretz Yisrael. So really the question is like Rebelsky and others, or Shmuel Kamenetsky as well, says, mutter lahem linoy kach, to wait 3 hours. Yeah, interesting what he was referring to. And again, that's really where this begins. It sounds like Lamaisa, what it sounds like. Again, every Yakish Rav has to ask their chaver Rav, whatever. What's the Rav called? The Rav's called a Rav. Rav's called a Rav. Okay, so but that's what it sounds like. It sounds like there is a real reason, real minhag. We'll say it like this. It sounds like they have a very strong minhag to wait 3 hours, as they have very strong minhagim. Just meet on Yaki and you'll find out about their strong minhagim. And if you don't, then they'll make sure that you know about the strong minhagim, about everything, but absolutely everything. But it sounds like that they themselves are of the opinion that Lamaisa l'shach says Reach HaTorah, and it sounds like Rav Schwab and the Gedolim and the Talmidei Chachamim waited that, but they were a machmir on their family, which, just to mention, that explains a big kasha. Often you'll hear people question, I don't understand. If you're machmer, why is your wife not machmer? I understand. It's like a gufa. It's all the bnei bayis. What's going on? You're machmer, but you're not machmer on the kids. What's going on? So if it's something, sometimes it's like a high level chumrah, like every rav. You'll ask the rav a shayla, and then you bump into the rav in the coffee room one day on the Shabbos, and you see him making a coffee. And what in the world is he doing? He takes the thing, he's a cliche, and then he pours it into another one, and then he takes the coffee, and he's holding the cup, and he's like stirring it in. And you're like, didn't the Rav give a whole shiur that all you got to do is you put the coffee in, you put the water, and you pour it on top, and done, and finished? The answer is, yeah, that's what you could make on. Ramesh himself writes in Kama V'Kama Tshuvos, Avlani ba'atzmi, I am machmer to do such. That's one thing. And then in such a chumrah, you wouldn't be machmer on the kids. But here, there's really a kasha, because this is minhag. So if you're taking on 6 hours, so your kids should take on 6 hours. The answer is that the Yakis have a very, very strong 3 hour minhag. And therefore, it's going to create a very unique split, hopefully not a split, but in halacha, that the husband is going to say, okay, I'm ready, I have reach Torah. I heard what time someone said, anyone who's ever seen the shach inside, he's the one that the shach is talking about his reach Torah. Because let's be honest, how many people see the shach? So if you're one that opened the Shulchan Aruch and saw the shach, that says reach Torah. Right. So l'chayra, they themselves have to wait 6 hours, but the kids and the wife, they can continue waiting 3 hours als minhag. L'chayra, that is the appropriate response. No, Rebelsky. No.
About the shach that says reach Torah.
No.
Another Yankee scared about the shach.
That's cute. That's a story.
So it's just, whatever.
I hope it didn't just happen.
No, not just having it.
I don't know which Rebelsky they're talking to, but he's not Ilan Memes. He's hanging out with the shach right now. It's an interesting story because Rav Schwab himself sounds like he was worried about the shach. So for Schwab, who's
Right, Rav Belsky said don't change your minhag. According to Rav Schwab, you would change your minhag.
that's
Rav Belsky was on a different camp.
so that's exactly the fascinating point. Is that if you're a yeki, then you should be going with.
No,
That's that. I think that really covers all of 6 hours, and the only other thing to discuss is the whole 5 hour chevra, the whole 5 hour, 1 minute, 5.5 hours. V'chulu. Rav Aaron Kotler famously says 5.5 hours, and where does it come from? I'm actually not sure. Does anyone know where it comes from?
5.5?
Yeah.
that was Luke Field.
Oh, okay. Meaning the Rambam.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to speak out the kasha. It's not my kasha.
Do I go 5 hours?
1 second.
It should be like 3
3 hours and 1 minute.
No. So 1 second. The answer is the Ram. No. Again. It's slow. We're all coming from the Rambam. The Rambam's Tama Basar Ben Shinaim, and the Rambam said Kimoi Sheishais. So you have to get Kimoi Sheishais. The kasha, which isn't my question. It's not even a question, and we're not Chas Shalom asking this on Rav Aaron. But the Shulchan Aruch didn't say that. It's very nice that the Rambam says Kimoi, but when the Shulchan Aruch put down this for eternity, he said L'hantin Sheishais. So I understand the time. I'm not asking a question, but that is the reason why there are many, and they Forrest says this where Moshe held v'chulu. That say 6 hours is 6 hours, and you can hear it straight. There is sources. We saw Rabbi Yerucham, the Pri Chadash, that said K'may Dal Shais. There's a Das Kedoshim that says. He says karoiv. It's approximate time. It's not precise. They don't quote Rav Nosson Tzvi, but I think in the Mir they had a similar Kabbalah. They used to serve the supper after the second lunch, which was about 5.5 hours. I couldn't verify this. I think Rav Nosson Tzvi used to quote Rav Aaron. I would love to verify it. No, I think Rav Nosson Tzvi used to quote Rav Aaron. It's like the Rosh Hashiva Dik Psak that obviously it was done Latel's the yeshiva, and then every bacher says, "What about minhag?" And this is tam a klal for bacherim, is that if you're in a yeshiva, that's your family now, that's your mishpacha, and therefore you're allowed to go with their minhagim, and that might even answer the $1 million question when we learn Bishul Akum, how the Sfardim in the yeshiva are mekel like the Ashkenazim. That might even answer the question, because the answer is it's good that they're Sfardi and they have incredible minhagim, but right now they've been adopted by an Ashkenazi family, and therefore they're allowed the world of minhagim even without being mater neder to go with their minhagim. L'chayra.
There's also this Meir that people quote.
Yeah, 5 hours. Yeah. To quote a Miri is okay. You know where that goes. We'll just point out the Aruch HaShulchan that are Bali Tshuva Yekis who are in the middle of being machmir like the Shach. We know that whenever you're Bali Tshuva, you go and Makam Bali Tshuva Imdim, is you go even further. So then you go to the Aruch HaShulchan. And you're machmir not just from where you eat the food, from the ganze Suda. The Aruch HaShulchan. That is Aruch HaShulchan. Lamaisa, who argues? The answer is everyone. Interesting, I see over here they quote that in Skver. You got to ask a chassid. I have to call one up. In skver, they're machmir mizman nitilas mayim achronim. Skver a minhag. I don't know. Maybe there's like a zach at the tish. Chleis nishvas. What? Sefer Chaya Levi says minhagenu biskver. Don't know. I don't know. I have no clue. I have absolutely no clue what's going on in Sver. But the pashtus obviously is that it goes by the food. It goes by the food. Okay, let's continue. One last shayla, which we're probably going to have to end with, is what about, I don't know if we should go into this right now. You see what's next. I don't know if we should go into this right now.
You asked us the shayla already.
No. I want, there is a reason for the madness. Hold on one second. Yeah. We're going to go into it. But I told you before that we're going to come back to Shayla. And I don't want to be accused of not coming back. We're actually going to try to stick to our word. Which is what? You forgot? Suffolk. What did you forgot? If you made a mistake. Tais. Tais. Good. If you're fleishiks and you eat milchiks. Now, again, svara chitzoina. I don't know if it's chitzoina. I don't want to call it yeshara because that's not nice. Because people don't hold that way, and you're saying they don't have svara. It's just not nice. But is that 6 hours? 6 hours. You made a mistake. You made a mistake. What happens on a fast day if you took a drink? You don't keep drinking. You put it down and you fast. And that's where kamat kol apaisi that talk about this shayla, right? That like, what's the question? You stop and finish. The Rav Sarai Devlitsky, he says Gadol v'Yushalayim. He says that you rinse out your mouth. Again, it's a hint. I'll be honest. It is interesting why it's more of a hint to shayla. I don't know. Maybe back in the day, no one ever made a mistake. I don't know. I guess so. I guess so. I don't know. It's interesting because, there's a Das Kedoshim, Kaf HaChaim. They say as follows. I'm going to read their words. It's very important to see their words. Let's start with the Kaf HaChaim. Now, some of you are wondering, like, Kaf HaChaim is Sephardi. So, like, even if he's going to be Mekel, why would us Ashkenazim be Mekel? And maybe we won't. But let's at least see, is there a sheet out there? Again, the case is, let me just tell you the classical case. Let's just paint an extreme picture. Because if it's like, I don't want to call it a silly case. You by accident had a dot of milk, and now you're like, oh, Givaldik, let me go now out and buy pizza and whatever. It's a little bit silly. Let's paint a case that is actually a tzarech to start the story. Because without a tzarech, it's going to be a little bit silly. The case is going to be, you went to the pizza store, you bought the pizza, and you have the pizza in front of you. You took a bite of the pizza, and then you realize, shoot, I'm fleishiks. So now the question is, do you have to throw out the pizza? That's the question. You're hungry. You want to see this maybe bal tashlis, meaning we have to paint a case that's actually a story to start. Comes on Kaf HaChaim, and he says as follows. V'im shochach v'hischel le'achol gevina b'toich sheish sha'is. What do? Says the Kaf HaChaim, and I'm going to read his words slowly. Goimer ve'in sarich lahafsek. Goimer, you finish, ve'ein sarich lahafsik, and you don't have to be mafsik. Very good. Ve'ein sarich lis anois, you don't have to fast. Al shigasai ke'ein bekach signoin achilas iser rak geder. So ironically, again, I'll tell you what people say, and I'll tell you maybe an epis. I'll call it a limas chos. This is my own personal shtickle Torah. It's not a shtickle Torah. The way I could potentially read the Kaf HaChaim. There are those who say you could be mekel. If you messed up and you already had milk, you'll have to continue. What does it mean continue? They say continue. Does that mean just swallow? No. Finish. Sit down and eat the pizza. You are now melchiks. Question is, where does that come from? So this Kaf HaChaim, the second half of it might have given us a limud. The first half told us nothing. The first half, which is what maybe you would make a mistake, you think, he didn't say goimer v'in sarich lahafsik. What does that mean? That just means swallow. Just means swallow. And how do I know it means that? Because you look at all the other poskim and they say, don't swallow. Rav Chaim had to point out, don't throw up. Rinse out your mouth, says other poskim. He says you could swallow and you don't have to be mafsik. But then he says, Rebbe, do you have to do tshuva? He said, no. Why don't you have to do tshuva? Why not? It was a shaygig. If someone by mistake turns on a light on Shabbos, you have to do tshuva. I was a shaygig, bring a chatas for a shaygig. Says the Kaf HaChaim, because ke'in v'kach signoin achilas iser rak geder. Mazeh.
That would mean it'd have to be past an hour.
Oh, we'll get there in a second. Mazeh rak geder. Seemingly, what he's saying is that the whole sugya that we're learning is a geder. Is bas bein shinayim. There's tam shuman, tam nimshach. And therefore, we're being very extreme in making sure you don't get near this basar v'chalav. You saw Alpi the Zayar, you have goats flying in your head. If you mess up on this one, I think everyone knows the famous story with Rav Chaim, and he wouldn't shake a bacher's hand. And they asked him, why not? He said, crazy, he has a goat on his forehead. And they were mavire, and there was something wrong with the kashrus. I don't remember what. What was it? Sorry?
He had chocolate after his meal.
And he didn't know that it was something. He knew, but the parents didn't chap what was going on. Right, he afterwards was mavire that the kid was, gnashing on milky chocolate after his fleishiks. Rechaim didn't want to look at him because there's a goat in his forehead. And it's a Zoyar. Yena Zoyar that we saw, you saw the Zoyar.
I saw the guy.
Oh, very good. Yena Zoyar that says about waiting the hour, this is what he says. But saying the Kaf HaChaim, why are we being so extreme? It's a geder. Now, every geder in the world, you could dan. What does a geder mean? When Chazal created a geder, did they create an Isser be'etzem? Or did they just want you to be as marchik as possible? One might want to say in the Kaf HaChaim, and I'll be honest, I've gotten very choice words trying to sell this pshat to Talmidei Chachamim. One might want to say, if the whole vart is a geder, once you violate the geder, what's the point in stopping? There was a geder. You messed up. Right now, what's in your stomach? What's in your throat? Right now, there's a party going on in cheese and milk. So now this is the point that you have to done. So you can say, okay, but don't continue the party. Don't add more fuel. Or you can say it's too late. This is potentially, and the Das Kedoshim, who's the Buchach in the back of the Gemara, quotes this Kaf HaChaim, I think it's actually the reverse in halacha, that is mekel as well. This is where someone wants to be mekel. Now, let's now go practically. This is what some want to say. As I think we're all trying to realize that in the world of shalom, the first step is to understand the other side of the coin. So if you hear a psak from a Rav, who's an Adam Gadol, that he's mekel, instead of just like, fair, maybe understand it. So let's try to understand it. So we see we're quoting Kaf HaChaim. Okay, L'maisa, no one wants to go with the Kaf HaChaim. Okay, good. But now let's go to the next step. Usually, or maybe in all cases, when did this story happen? Well, let's just be practical. Let's go back to our Shitas Rishonim. It certainly didn't happen by Suda, right? No one in the world has ever done that. It certainly didn't happen Mevarich and Yafsik Miyad like Tosfos. Certainly didn't happen. It certainly didn't happen like the Maril within 1 hour. So when did it happen? It happened between 1 and 6. In the world, pardon the yakis for a moment, in the world of halacha, in the world of Shulchan Aruch, between 1 and 6, there's no difference. There's a Shita 1, there's a Shita 6. Finished. You finished 1, you got to get to 6. He didn't get to 6. There's definitely what to be said, that there's many Shitas Rishonim Achrayim. The Ramah himself, if you say Shitas Rishonim, people say, oh, well, who cares Rishonim? Which is true. Has to be brought in halacha. The Ramah said there was a minhag. There was a minhag of Klal Yisrael waiting 1 hour. It's true that I say Kalim scream, and they say you shouldn't do it, and the minhag halin and does. But now you put it all together, and you want to say that one wants to be mekel, you can hear it. And va'ayit, I'll just add on. Usually, when is it? Often it's after 5 hours. Okay, I'm just saying balapatish. Oh, I'm going to get to the pre-Chadash in a second. Usually, Balabatish, no normal Jew, finishes a cup of coffee, a steak at 1 o'clock and walks into a pizza store at 1:30. That's just not normal. It'll happen a few hours later. A few hours later, Kemat always is going to be 4 or 5 hours. That's just, this is my personal statistic I have found. After 4 hours, you have a pre-Chadash. After 5 hours, you have all these shitas that are saying the kamai business. So, is it so schwer now to be mekel? Is it? So now, in the what I would say is, if someone wants to the psak halacha 100%, and I don't even know if the mar mekaimis, those rabbanim that are mekel, it's not a cloud. Yeah, you eat it and done, and because so that means 1 minute later. No, it doesn't mean that. It means when you put this whole party together, yesh makaim lakel. What does it mean makaim lakel? Again, does that mean that there's not a makom to be machmir? Of course there is. Of course there is. That is the case of mistake. Good? Good. We'll finish off with Suffolk. We will we'll try to finish off with Suffolk. The question is, what is the story? Actually, it's a nice segue. Hopefully we can do it together. What is the story? I didn't plan on doing that back to back, but I think it's going to work nicely. What is the story with the Suffolk? Yeah, you have a question? Sleeping. Yeah, we're not going to get there, but yeah, that's really next. We're going to get there. That's next. What's the story with Suffolk? What's the Suffolk? The Suffolk is you're misupik if 6 hours passed. Now, I want to, I hope everyone thought about it. What does it mean you're misupik if 6 hours passed? I'm not going to say anything right now. I'm just going to repeat the words in English. It might be that 6 hours passed. That's the same thing, right? No, because often when someone says, yeah, I don't know what time I finished eating. Was it maybe 6 hours ago? Oh, no, I just don't know when I finished. No, it's not like, oh, you don't know when you're finished, you now have a suffix to do what you want. Suffix means, like the case we spoke about, you don't remember, did I finish lunch at 1:45 or 2:30? I know for sure by 2:30 I was puffing on the couch. At 1:45, I don't know, adds in that there was benching and maybe cleanup and maybe dessert, we don't know. But wait, maybe as they brought in the plate, I took a bite. That shoot bite on the way into the kitchen. Why did I do that? So now I have a proper suffix. Because this answers a lot of the minor issues that people have, because people get caught making it not a suffix. And if it's not a suffix, I agree. If it's not a suffix, you have to wait 6 hours. Like the halacha. Again, whatever. Someone's making is 5, 5 and 1, 5.5. Point is, whatever the minhag is. Now, let's say you have a proper suffix. Yeah.
It's at 4 o'clock now, and I still don't know. I don't know if I finished at 1:45 or 2:30.
That's for sure a problem.
So now you wait 6 hours from 2:30.
Good. So that's the same question. Good. That's the same question. So now at 7:45.
Or you just bavarni.
I was bavarning the klutz kasha that people say. It's a suffix. Oh, I don't know when I finished. 5 o'clock they go and eat. What are you doing? 5 o'clock. It for sure wasn't 6 hours in either of your times. I'm just explaining that it's a real suffix. So I have 2 times. I don't know if it was 1:45 or 2:30, and now it's between 7:45 and 8:30. That's the case. On such a scenario, again, it's also interesting that there's not that many, which might be a limud. There's not that many old sources on this. And Yad Yehuda is old. He's the only one. He's only one. But aside from the Yad Yehuda, which we'll quote in a moment, which we have it. He doesn't quote the right lashon over here. He doesn't quote the right lashon. You want to know about the Yad Yehuda? It's Sifkat and Aleph right here. Over here, he doesn't quote. He just quotes like half a line. I don't know what he means. I was trying to figure it out. So, yeah. Aleph, right there on the side. So, Lamaisa, there's many Rav Chaim Kanievskis, in which all of them, he says, do you have to wait misafik? Yes. Do you have to wait misafik? Yes. Do you have to wait misafik? Yes. Again and again. But then, what's very interesting is that comes along all the, Rav Elyashiv Svarim. You have the Bnei Brak Svarim and you have the Yerushalayim Svarim. Yeah, he says it straight? Machma zeh gamim safek loy im shash sheishais yish lachma. Right. So what Rabbi Stillerman in his Gadlus is pointing out is that if you go to the beginning of the paragraph,
It's only talking about the Mechana.
yeah, if you go to the beginning of the paragraph, it's
So the Svar would still work though. That was just my turn.
yes.
If that Svar works.
Yishladim. Good. Maybe there's Yad Yehuda. Maybe there's Yad Yehuda. Lamaisa, they quote the Rav Elyashiv Svarimol quote that if you're not sure, then once you're carved to Shashishis, Roiv Shashishis, in the Shashishis, then you're fine. In the article book, he quotes from Ray Belsky that if you're not sure, you could be Makel. The Badia Shulchan didn't want to get, didn't want to get in trouble. So he wrote, Hasaymech lo hifsid. Saymech lahakel. Because if you're Saymech lahachmer, you are hifsid, because then you lost your coffee. But if you're Saymech lahakel, lo hifsid. And Shmuel Felder, as well as many other Gedalim over here. Now, there is a middle level. There's a middle level that certain Gedalim want to say it's right. It's a nice chumrah. It's a nice chumrah. And that you could certainly hear, right? You could hear to be machmir. You hear to be machmir. And we'll conclude. Now, if you want to know what the sugya is to think about, it's davar sheish lo matirim, which is a klal and halacha. That anything that's going to eventually be mutter, why have it now be'isser? That's the shaila, obviously. Have it then beheter. Here it's not be'isser. Here it's besafek, which is when davar sheish lo matirim usually applies. That's the whole sugya over here, and it's a davar sheish lo matirim story. Lehalacha, there's a makatu mekel, and there's a makatu machmir.
Depending how bad you want it.
There's makatu mekel, there's a makatu machmir.